All right, let's dive into this geophysicist thing.
Sounds good to me.
I've been looking over this stuff you sent, and I gotta say,
Yeah.
it's way more interesting than I thought. Like, these geophysicists are practically detectives, but for the planet.
Definitely. It's about time we stop taking the Earth for granted, right? These are the people, I mean, they spend their whole careers, their lives really, focused on uncovering these secrets the Earth has.
Yeah, and speaking of secrets, one of these articles said geophysics is all about using the principles of physics to study the Earth's internal structure, properties, and
Right.
processes.
Right.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but it's also really practical stuff, which is what's so cool.
What do you mean?
Well, take renewable energy, right? Everybody's talking about it.
For sure.
Geophysicists, they're the ones out there finding geothermal energy, using their knowledge to, dig into making a more sustainable future.
It's like they're not just finding what's down there, but figuring out how we can actually use it responsibly, too.
Yeah.
And get this, they can even use their skills for space exploration.
It's true. To understand what's happening out there on other planets, you got to start with a deep understanding of home, right?
Makes sense. So what they learn about Earth can be applied to, like, Mars.
And beyond. Think about it, the techniques these geophysicists use, like analyzing seismic waves, that helps them understand our planet's core. That same data, that knowledge, it's useful even when you're talking about planets millions of miles away.
Wow. Okay, so that's a universal job description if I've ever heard one. But let's get back down to Earth here. Literally, what's it actually like to be a geophysicist day to day?
Yeah, good luck picturing these guys in a stuffy office.
I was just thinking that.
One day you could be in a lab all high-tech, then the next year out in the field gathering samples, maybe even hanging off an oil rig.
Talk about an office with a view. But seriously, that sounds intense. You'd have to be pretty resilient to handle that kind of work, right?
For sure, you got to be adaptable. You're dealing with unpredictable environments all the time. Extreme weather, maybe even hazardous materials. Not for everyone, that's for sure, but for the right person.
It sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And the sources I read mentioned some pretty nice perks, too, like a good salary and travel opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. It's a career with a lot to offer. You get to travel, sure, but also it takes a certain kind of person to thrive in this field,
Oh, so...
You got to have that thirst for knowledge, that aha moment when you crack a complex geological puzzle. That's what truly motivates these scientists that drive to understand how our planet works.
You're making me want to dust off my old rock collection. But seriously, you don't just wake up one day and decide to be a geophysicist, do you? What kind of education do you need?
Yeah, you're right. It's not a career you just fall into. It takes dedication. You've got to have a solid base in science and math. That's key. A bachelor's degree in geophysics or geology is usually where you'd start. But a lot of the articles you sent mentioned that advanced degrees are becoming more and more important, especially if you want to lead research or be in a leadership role.
So a master's or even a PhD could make a big difference in this field.
Definitely. And it's never too early to start getting practical experience under your belt.
Like what kind of experience?
Internships, research projects, anything that lets you get your hands dirty, Literally, in this case, boots muddy, out in the field. That's invaluable.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the how, but what about the where? What are some of the specific areas a geophysicist can specialize in?
Oh man, where do we even begin? You've got your seismologists, the earthquake experts. They always have the best stories at parties, by the way.
Oh, I bet. So what do you do? Oh, I just study earthquakes. No big deal.
Exactly. But joking aside, seismology is crucial, especially now with earthquake risks becoming a bigger concern. These are the scientists analyzing seismic waves, trying to predict when and where the next big one might hit. High-stakes stuff.
You can say that again. Speaking of high stakes, one of the sources talked about geomagnetism. I got to be honest, I had to Google that one for a refresher.
Well, picture this. You're a geophysicist specializing in geomagnetism. You're studying the Earth's magnetic field, trying to understand how these invisible forces shaped our planet over millions of years.
Wait, are we talking about the magnetic poles flipping? Because that still blows my mind.
That's the one. And get this, geophysicists can trace that phenomenon back through time. They study rocks and sediments, looking at their magnetic signatures to understand when these flips happened. It's like a time machine for the Earth's magnetic field.
Okay, you officially win for coolest fact of the day. I never realized geophysics was so much more than just, rocks. It's about these massive forces that have shaped our planet. But what about for people like me who are less worried about ancient magnetic fields and more concerned with, well, living on Earth today? Are there specializations that are a bit more, I don't know, relevant to our everyday lives?
You bet. In fact, there's a whole area dedicated to just that, environmental geophysics. It's about using geophysics to solve environmental problems. So let's say there's been a chemical spill, right? And an environmental geophysicist, they'd use their knowledge to, like, track where the contamination is going underground.
So they'd be helping to protect groundwater.
Exactly. Assessing environmental risks, keeping people safe. It's really important work.
Definitely. It's amazing how geophysics can be used in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And of course, we can't forget about the energy sector. I'm sure you've heard of petroleum geophysics.
Oh, yeah. It seems like it's always in the news, especially with everything with energy independence and finding new oil and gas.
Right. It's a field that's always in demand. As a petroleum geophysicist, you'd be using some seriously cutting-edge technology. Think like using seismic waves to create 3D images.
3D images.
Of what? Of the Earth's subsurface. Almost like giving the planet an ultrasound to find those oil and gas reserves.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Speaking of technology, these articles mention something called RoleCatcher.
Yeah, RoleCatcher.
It's an AI platform, right? Helps people find jobs.
That's it. It just goes to show you how much technology is changing every single field, even geophysics.
So it's not just about knowing the science anymore. You got to be tech savvy too.
Well, those core scientific principles are still the foundation, of course. But yeah, having strong technical skills is more important than ever. Being comfortable with data analysis software, understanding how AI plays into recruitment.
It gives you an edge.
Exactly.
So that's where RoleCatcher comes in.
Yep. It can be a great tool for anybody in the field, honestly. If you're fresh out of school and looking for that first job, or even if you're, a seasoned geophysicist looking for a new challenge.
So what? It helps you find the right job openings.
That, and it helps you tailor your resume, practice interview questions.
Like having a career coach in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've talked about the education you need, the experience to get. What about soft skills? Are those important for geophysicists? I feel like you hear about those a lot no matter what job you're considering.
Oh, they're absolutely essential in this field. Probably more than a lot of people realize. Think about it. You're constantly working in teams.
Right.
Collaborating with people from all different backgrounds. Sometimes you even have to explain really complex ideas to people who aren't scientists.
So being a good communicator is key.
Exactly. Being able to explain your work clearly, build relationships with your colleagues, be a strong team player. Those are just as important as your technical skills.
Makes sense. It's not enough to just do the science. You got to be able to bring other people along with you.
Now you're getting it. And speaking of bringing people along, one of those articles you sent, it actually had this list of common interview questions for geophysicists. I thought it was really interesting.
Oh, for sure. Give us a sneak peek. What kind of questions should people be ready for?
Well, you've got your standard ones, of course, like why geophysics? What excites you about this field? But then there are the more technical questions about specific methods, equipment, that sort of thing.
You kind of know your stuff.
You do. But it's not enough to just memorize facts. They'll also ask you about how you would handle certain situations. Like, what do you do if the data you're getting doesn't make sense? Or if you encounter some unexpected problem out in the field.
They want to see if you can think on your feet.
Exactly. Being adaptable, resourceful, thinking critically, those are all super important in this field.
Makes sense. So, any advice for someone going into an interview for a geophysics job?
Do your research. Take the time to really understand the company, what they're working on, and then be prepared to talk about how your skills and experience can help them achieve their goals.
Show them you're invested.
Right. It's not just about finding a job. It's about being part of something bigger. And what could be bigger than, figuring out the mysteries of the planet?
That's a great point. So for someone who's listening to this and they're thinking, geophysics sounds pretty cool, what resources are out there? Any organizations that can help them learn more?
Oh, absolutely. The American Geophysical Union, or AGU, is a great place to start.
The AGU, huh? So that's kind of like their home base.
Exactly. Tons of info on their website, educational resources, career advice, you name it. And of course, we've got to give another shout out to RoleCatcher.
For sure. Especially for those who are ready to, take that next step and start applying for jobs.
It's like your AI career counselor guiding you through the whole process. But even beyond those resources,
Yeah.
I always encourage people to just, explore.
What, like grab a shovel and start digging?
Well, you could, but I was thinking more like read some books, watch a documentary, maybe even go to a lecture or two. Just immerse yourself in the world of geophysics. You might be surprised by what grabs your interest.
It's all about keeping that curiosity alive, that sense of wonder. Speaking of which, one of the things you mentioned a geophysicist, Inge Lehman, I think her name
Oh,
was.
Sullivan, yeah.
She discovered the Earth's inner core. Can you imagine being the first person to see something that's been hidden for billions of years?
It's amazing, right? The power of observation, putting in the work, and never giving up on your curiosity. It really goes to show that there's still so much out there to discover, even right here on our own planet.
Makes you wonder what the future holds for geophysics, right?
Yeah.
What kind of amazing discoveries are still waiting to be made?
Who knows? Maybe it'll be one of our listeners who makes the next big breakthrough.
It could happen. Our listeners could be out there mapping uncharted territories, developing incredible new technologies.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about geophysics. It's always evolving, always pushing the boundaries of what we know about our planet and ourselves.
So well said. We've covered a lot of ground today. Everything from, the Earth's core to outer space.
We did!
But hopefully our listeners have learned a thing or two about the incredible work that geophysicists do and the impact they have on the world.
I hope so too. It's a fascinating field.
It really is. And for anyone out there who's feeling that spark, that curiosity about the planet, don't ignore it. Dive in. You never know what you might discover.
Well said.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well,
A huge thank you to you for joining us today and sharing your expertise with us. It's been a pleasure picking your brain about geophysics.
happy to do it anytime.
And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.